Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are just before market close on Thursday, October 21st. We're going to take a look at Mara today. So Mara, as I'm sure you know, Bitcoin miner, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, that sort of thing. So we're in a bit of a crypto boom at the moment, and of course Mara is benefiting from that. So what I wanted to do today, though, is just sort of treat it as a stock, because we have seen it sort of throughout different periods not follow Bitcoin to a T, because it is also a company, and so there's operating effectiveness that they have or they don't have that could impact the price of the stock. There's of course like offerings that could, like, there's plenty of things that could happen to the stock that would make it just sort of like not exactly follow Bitcoin. That said, obviously price of Bitcoin highly influential to Mara, so I wouldn't take away from it. But this is just to preface this by saying I'm going to look at this as a stock and use indicators and trend analysis like I would any other stock. First, we're going to take a look at a slew of indicators while we have a nice blank chart here that's not going to muddy that up. And then we'll go in and we'll chart some trend lines. We'll chart some supply and demand zones and see what sort of plays might be evolving in the days or weeks ahead. We're going to be working from the daily chart, though, just so you know. All right, so let's kick things off with the MACD, something pretty simple. Now, MACD is a bit extended to the upside. Nothing terribly dramatic. I mean, it's about where you'd expect it to be, being that it's approaching this high again and obviously getting some pushback at the moment on that approach. Slight curl on the MACD line here. Could certainly do a fake out here and appear as though it's going to cross over and then head back up further. But I think, you know, it's just sort of on watch at this moment to see, okay, yes, slight curl, but there's still quite a bit of distance between the MACD and the signal line. So what route is it going to take? And just sort of watch and see what that looks like. Now RSI coming down from overbought. Now the question here is going to be likely what happens around the midline, right? You see the mid range is 50 here, and previously when it's been able to hold that, like you see right here, it's been able to push up further and further. And when it loses it, like you see here, then it pushes down toward the oversold territory. Same thing happened back here and back here. So if this does continue to come down further, I would really be watching to see what the RSI does as it approaches the 50. Does it start to look like it bounces then, or does it look like it's going to or wanting to fall through at that point, and sort of see what that might indicate for the days and weeks ahead. Now we also have a bullish crossover here, or it's sort of like a, yeah, this is kind of like a head fake like I was just talking about with the MACD. So the 20 MA in purple here looked like it was going to have a bearish crossover here, cross below the 50. But what happened was it just sort of like kissed it and then went back up and threw another sort of bullish movement in there, working distance between itself and the 50 MA. So as you would imagine, with such a month or so that Mara has had, it's in a fully bullish formation right now, these MAs. So these should provide additional support if it's needed. 20, 50, and 180 all lined up in that order from top to bottom. So like I said, that's a nice bullish setup there. But I'd watch, of course, for any of that to change. Now on the Ichimoku Cloud, you have a few things happening. So we have the price action above the cloud here, and this gold colored line here, the one that you see here now, had a crossover above the baseline, which is the yellow one here. And that happened when, let me just make sure I'm right, that happened when the price action was above the cloud. So that is considered a strong buy signal. And obviously then the price ran from about $40 at that point up to about 52, 53, nearly 54. Or I guess this wick probably went over 54. Yeah. Oh, this wick went to like 56. Okay. So pretty solid buy signal there. Now the question is the price going to be able to bounce here? Is it going to come down? Is that conversion line going to start curling down toward the baseline like you see with the relationship between the MACD and the signal line, for example? And if it does cross over below the baseline at this point, and the price action is above the cloud, that's considered a weak sell signal because you have several areas of support. The clouds themselves could act as supports, and as you see here, there's a strong scoop. So if it does come down and test this like high 30s range, which would be where the clouds would be, if it's able to really get solid support in the clouds or on the clouds, then it could follow it back up into the mid 40s here, in about a month's time. So it, just depends, but there is some support there. That said, the thinner the cloud, the weaker the support. So it's pretty weak support through this range here and definitely up here. So it's strongest support right now, but I mean, I doubt that it's going to suddenly plummet down to say 36 to test that support at the moment. It could, but I don't, it have to be something pretty strong happening. But that's the way that I see it for the indicators. Now, let's take a look and just plot some trend lines here. Now, the one that seems most obvious to me at the moment is this 1832 to here. And so that's sort of like really, really strong base, longer term uptrend support, right? And then we have essentially like a subset of that that sits here, right? So we have these varying degrees of uptrends, and then we also have one sort of situated here, which could be kind of impactful at the moment. Now this cuts through. This is where sort of like has these variants of uptrend, right? This is the slower and steadier uptrend. This is sort of the mid-range. This is like a moderate uptrend, and this is a steeper uptrend. It wasn't able to hold that steep uptrend, but it was caught by the moderate uptrend, or that actually helped establish the moderate uptrend. We'll have to see if that sort of retests again, if that proves to hold. But these could provide, again, some additional levels of support if it's needed, but it would hit this one first, obviously, and even if it comes down kind of steadily, probably hit it in the $46.50 to $48 range, something like that, which is a pretty, sizable drawdown if Mara continues to push down. Now, that said, we have some pivot points here that we'll plot in as supply and demand zones. So we have pretty clear pivot here, 4807. You see resistance that flipped to support and was able to provide a good push, and then it came down and retested and lost it. And then that's about where it pivoted here, and that's quite as exactly, but the body of this candle, that's where it sort of situated itself when it flipped to support there. So that's what it would look for on that end of things. Obviously 54.59 proving to be a tough zone. You see it back here, and then previously where it got stopped out there, and then we got to throw this one up here to see if it sort of hits itself on recent highs again. So we have a few tight end resistance zones there. That said, nothing else to really pick up on. If we go left a little bit to the downside, if it needs additional support, $45 on the dot would make a ton of sense to me for a strong support zone. And then we can throw in one below that in case it can't hold that for some reason. I'll look right around here, $40.36. We have support or resistance that flipped to support, resistance to support, and then lost it, resistance, support, and a slew of support and resistance over here. So that's what I see on the chart and sort of the dynamics there. I guess there is a bit of a potential for like a kind of a wedging type movement here. We have a ray that cuts through these. So that's establishing a bit of a downtrend resistance. So the other sort of possibility here is if it's able to continue to work itself into a more and more condensed price zone, which would be this uptrend coming into contact with this downtrend, and sort of seeing where those, what the price action does if and when it breaks through either of those. Obviously it breaks to the downside if it comes through here, breaks to the upside if it comes through there. But But those are also just pretty in line with some of these other supply and demand zones. But might as well leave it on there for the time being so you can see sort of where some of these nexus points are in case they come into play a factor. All right, flipping over to the data. I mean, still a pretty solid upside potential per analyst targets. And this isn't because I think the analysts are necessarily right, but to the degree that they influence retail and or institutions to come in and make decisions because they see potential. 3 buy ratings, a little over 17% of upside, might not seem like the worst thing in the world. But it's already done a lot of work, right? It's come up over 56% in the last month. So that's a lot to sort of withstand for the buyers to keep showing up. This doesn't mean that they can't. Of course they can. There's like a whole sort of slogan out there of buy high and sell higher, versus like trying to catch a falling knife and stuff like that. But just have to see what it does at these kind of critical levels, right? It's putting in a couple of red days, and does that have a lasting impact, or is that just sort of like a slight interruption like you would expect to see in an overall otherwise upticking environment? So short interest here, definitely not nothing. So just slight change today to the upside. Utilization, there's plenty of room for shorts to borrow if they want, but it's over 10%, which has always been my threshold of like, okay, this number of short sellers is going to start to put some appearances of pressure, selling pressure into the stock that aren't just sort of organically there. And so something to keep an eye on. That said, estimated short interest in purple here, we see it's come down quite a bit. And the days to cover staying quite low. So they're kind of getting in, getting out, and not putting sort of like a bunch of super cumulative, long-lasting pressure on the stock, but these sort of more strategic, surgical get in, get out kind of situations. That doesn't mean that, as this increases, if it increases, that it couldn't sort of be pretty destructive or pretty distorting to the price action. But it's just something to keep an eye on. But at this point, it doesn't look to me like it's playing a huge factor. And if it does, I think this number would increase quite a bit, because I think they would just pile on, especially knowing that the price action has come up so much. I think the short sellers would be pretty quick to make the determination of like, this puts this stock really overextended. And so we see opportunity for trend reversal to the downside. And so we're going to pile on. So I think that number would rise pretty heftily if that was the case. All right, folks, that is Mara as I see it as of today. And, I hope no matter what you're trading, that your trading week is going well and that you're able to finish it off strong tomorrow. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.